We are now pleased to welcome Dr. José-Marie Griffiths, President of Dakota State University, for a fireside chat with Dr. Ryan Carpenter, Special Advisor at SCSP.
Well, good morning. Thank you everyone for coming. I cannot think of a better way to spend a Wednesday than with 500 of my closest friends talking about AI plus science at a summit here at the Waldorf. And I'm joined by one of my favorite people, that is Dr. José-Marie Griffiths, the president of Dakota State University. And while I was doing research, I don't think I realized that this is the 10-year anniversary of you becoming the president of Dakota State University. Yep. And I'm curious, how did you transform what you called a little college on the prairie into a cyber powerhouse on the plains? What was your vision? And just kind of walk us through how you transformed this college in just 10 years.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for that question. Thank you for inviting me to be here, and hello, everybody. I went to Dakota State in 2015, and I should tell you what attracted me there. It was an institution that way back in 1984 had been designated as the computer school of the public higher education system. And it had evolved over the years, so it had great strength, really, really strong foundational computer science program. Actually, it evolved from IBM's software engineering program way back in 1984. They also had evolved several cybersecurity programs. And what was attractive to me is they had this layer of computing technology capability across all of their different programs. So whether you were studying English or biology or education or business, you had this layer of computation within the curriculum that every single student had to take. So to me, that was appealing. So I also was very, very aware of the significant demand for people in the IT sector, especially the cybersecurity sector. We know those jobs have really increased. So they had the demand, the capability. They didn't have the visibility. Nobody really knew they existed. There they were in South Dakota, in the middle of the country, doing great work, educating people very, very well. Had been recognized by the National Security Agency and Department of Homeland Security as a premier center of academic excellence, and so it was sort of in a lead role in terms of education in that way. What was missing was research. There wasn't a lot of research going on. So I came in, two things. I said, we've got to start hiring faculty with capability in AI. Our computer science program had been teaching elements of AI, machine learning, neural nets, et cetera. They picked that up, and that was in the curriculum. But we need to have some expertise. And so in 2016, we hired our first AI professor, and we hired several more since then, obviously. So the idea was to increase the visibility, let people know what was going on at the institution, and then build a program of expansion. So we expanded significantly in AI. We now have 4 degree programs, freestanding degree programs beyond computer science and cybersecurity. And then we've just most recently moved into quantum computing. And the vision is AI, cybersecurity, and quantum computing all interrelate to each other, and that's been the driving force for our vision for this institution going forward. And I would say what's good news is we're about to be officially, computer science is about to be ABET accredited. Couldn't do that without the research. And we are, I believe next year, will be designated a Carnegie Research II university.
Wow. So. That's incredible. Now, you and I go back a little bit to the National Security Commission on AI, on the best panel, LOE 3, and that was on talent and workforce.
Yes.
And I'm very curious to see if there's anything you took from NSCAI to inform your approach to building AI capability at our regional university.
Okay. That was interesting. Actually, there were several working groups that we developed.
That's right.
Everyone wanted to be on research. I wanted to be on research, and nobody wanted to be on workforce. But I said, I'll do it. It's my job. I'll do it.
Shots fired.
Very interesting. What was fascinating as we went through the activities and conversations, everyone and every other working group eventually all came back to the need for workforce. So workforce is one of those layers, as one of our earlier speakers said. It's absolutely critical, and it's a critical enabler for everything we do in AI. So I think what I learned from the National Security Commission was how important the workforce is. It wasn't just, and also just this other thing that's done on the side. It's absolutely fundamentally critical, and as an educator, I know that, but it was nice to have that reinforced by everybody else. The second was a sense of urgency that I'm not sure. I knew AI was coming. So I'm glad I had started in 2016 to really move the freestanding nature of our programs. But I really became much, much more aware of how critical the needs were. We were talking about China a lot even back then in 2019. And so that was a real learning for me. And I think the third one was the process that we used. Yuli and Eric implemented a process, and Bob Walk, that was saying, well, we're not going to sit here for 2.5 years and write a report and then deliver it. We're actually going to write short reports, progress reports. We're going to keep moving. We're going to spin off products as we're going through. And that, as a process, was really, really helpful. And I think it allowed us to move forward implementation, to move things actually into legislation faster than had we produced the great, how many thousand pages that we produced in one fell swoop. The idea was we're going to have things coming out every few months. And that, as a way of getting things done in organizations, especially slow-moving institutions, was very, very helpful to me.
It was 756 pages, but who's counting?
I know it was long.
So you've been at the cutting edge of AI, dating all the way back to your dissertation and to your research when you were a student. And I'm curious how you saw AI changing the approach to scientific research, and what are you seeing as the most promising breakthroughs right now?
I appreciate that question because, quite frankly, I'm tired of everybody saying AI was just invented a few years ago. And I hear that. And I'm not as old as AI. AI predates me. But my earliest activities were as a doctoral student. And I got to do some work with the Cambridge Language Research Unit, Cambridge Language Research Unit, which was actually founded in 1954. And its original task was to look at machine translation. And I did do some early research work on machine translation in those days, looking at intermediate languages and so on. I mention this because it was very fascinating to me. Margaret Masterson, who is a philosopher and computer scientist, founded that institution. And she was talking, when I was an undergraduate and doctoral student, about maybe we have to have, maybe there's sort of a computer morality. So an interesting concept for somebody who's working on programming and simulation and so on. And I thought, computer morality? No, no, no. Well, lo and behold, where are we with artificial intelligence, starting to think about ethics and morality and building that in to our computational systems. So Margaret Masterson had a lot of foresight, and I appreciated that work that she did. But thinking about AI and the scientific process, I think it's really amazing to see how quickly now we are enhancing our ability to analyze data, and data of all kinds, not just numeric data, but textual data, textual research, image data, speech data, etc., is significant. Modeling of complex systems, I think I was doing simulation and modeling, quite rudimentary kinds of things when I was doing it. I used 4 computer centers around the country to get my doctoral dissertation done. Now I could probably do it on the capabilities of our laptops. So the power that's available to actually transform from ideas into reality is significant. And I think we're now beginning to see AI automating the research process itself, the workforce design, how we push things through from idea through to innovation to implementation is changing. We just heard the gentleman from NSF actually talking about workflows changing dramatically, and now having perhaps to retrain scientists to rethink the process that they go through because the tools are enable us to do things in different ways. That actually is an interesting issue. I'm about to launch a campus-wide initiative. We've been, as I say, teaching AI for many, many years. We've had our freestanding programs for 3 years. We've had our faculty talking about AI and what it means to teach with AI and what it means to evaluate student performance about AI and with AI, and we're using AI in some of our administrative procedures. But I'm beginning to think we need to fundamentally rethink the entire university, soup to nuts, because AI is coming and is going to be making so many changes. It hasn't quite made them yet, but as an institution, I'd really like to drive us forward to really think how we can plan our future institution knowing what's coming rather than wait and then have it imposed upon us. That's a whole different kind of conversation that we need to have in the academic world. I assume organizations, businesses are going to have to do similar things, to really rethink what AI is going to allow them to do and how it changes the nature of work, how it changes the nature of interactions, how it changes the nature of governance in those environments.
You have set up the next question beautifully because you're launching DSU's Applied Research Lab. Now, my research said 400 jobs, but as we talked about, probably more than that. How do you balance academic research with real-world economic development?
That's very, very, very good. When I went to DSU, a few faculty were doing sort of traditional research, pursuing individual research agendas. And I actually was inspired by some of my time at UNC Chapel Hill. The founders of UNC actually traveled around the state telling people, bring us your problems, and then we'll help solve them. And so that's the wonderful role for a public university, to pay back to the state that's funding it. So what we did was we created an entity, we called it the Madison Cyber Labs, which is based in Madison, South Dakota. But I joked, we can call it the Mad Labs. And these are strategic applied research labs where faculty had to come together to create ideas where they could help the outside world. So all the problems that come to those labs, we have 17 of them now, actually come from the outside world. And we then have our faculty members gather groups of students to actually work on solving problems. And we're doing it particularly for the kinds of problems we have in our state. So we've got a cyber health initiative, which cyber, not just cybersecurity, by the way, the original term cyber applying to all things to do with computers. We also have a cyber agriculture program, where we're helping the manufacturers of farming equipment to protect their machines and make them more effective. We have a cyber finance, because we have a big financial services sector. So at the same time, we're conducting this very applied research to solve problems for the external world. We are also helping the economic development in the state. And then our largest area of R&D is for national security, partly because of the relationship we already had with the National Security Agency and Department of Homeland Security. And we're building beyond that. So the idea that we've got these sort of multiple hundred full-time jobs that we're creating is because we said, we're losing our best talent to the DC area, to Silicon Valley, to the national labs. How do we keep more of our homegrown talent within the state to build economic development? And so we built a facility, we had NSA alongside us, on campus in Madison, that is a secure facility at the top level of security. It was very popular. People liked the idea of the research that we were doing, and so we said, well, we can do more of it, so let's build more. So we're building a much larger facility in Sioux Falls, and that will be the basis for what we're calling a cyber research park, a hub of activity in the state with expertise in cybersecurity, AI, and eventually, hopefully, quantum computing.
It sounds like we need an AI plus agriculture summit.
Yeah, we always have those. They are there.
I say because my father's a farmer, and farmers have always been first adapters because it's
exactly.
necessary for them
Absolutely.
to do
that.
Yep. I think this is great. I love where this is going. But I also wonder, though, there are challenges to overcome. And I wonder what you see the biggest policy gaps right now are in AI's potential for transforming the landscape.
Yeah, it goes back, I think, to that issue of urgency. It's very hard. The pace of technological change is by far outrunning the pace of policy development and regulatory change. And it's been interesting watching what's happened in Washington with that. We had the insight sessions. I was at multiple of those. And how do we move things forward? And then the states, the governors started saying, we're going to do it in the states. And I had the pleasure of testifying to our legislators about AI and the importance of AI. And again, I think AI can be such a big topic because it can do so many things in so many different application areas. It's hard for legislators to get their arms around it and to say, where do we start? And the dilemma is, if we don't start, we never start, right? We've got to find a way to do something. So I think that's the biggest barrier that we have. Changes are coming so rapidly, and so we are going to move, I guess we'll see this afternoon, towards innovation. We don't want to stifle innovation. And I was intrigued by the conversation on China this morning about how China's moving sort of big entities. And I was sitting over there thinking, we want agility. We want to be able to move quickly. We want to develop applications and then move them out into the workplace. But the workplace is a second area where I think policy is sort of lagging behind. And I'd really like to see this country sort of change the rhetoric around AI. It's almost 3 years now since ChatGPT-2 was announced, and everyone went berserk about it. Wonderful, wonderful product. But all of the media headlines at that time about AI were negative. The end of humanity. Jobs are going to go. Why don't we turn it around? What about the great developments we've seen, the applications of AI in biotech, the applications of AI in the medical sphere, the applications of AI in developing new materials? I mean, there's so many good things about AI. We need to really refocus our efforts on sort of the negative and from the negative to the positive. And as I think about that, and I think about, as an institute of higher education, we are graduating people who are going to be the developers, designers of AI. They're going to be the adopters and adapters of AI in different kinds of organizations. We're going to help educate end users, but we also have to educate the general public. So now in my thinking, as we restructure our institution in some way, I'm really thinking it's not just a question of educating a workforce, which we have to do, but what we need to do if we are to win that race and really see the kinds of benefits of AI that we're talking about, we need to educate a population. And we need to understand it as an all of population, as all of society effort to educate everyone about AI and what it can and can't do. And let's bust some of those myths that people have. Let's tell people, yeah, some jobs will go, but most jobs will just adapt. And maybe we can retrain and re-educate and upskill and help people understand that this could be quite helpful to them. We go through these cycles with all new technologies. This is nothing new. I do think, though, that the potential for AI, along with the tremendous boost that's going to come from quantum technologies, is going to create almost revolutionary change. In our lifetimes, I mean, in my lifetime at least, the young people, they'll see multiple cycles. But I think that's really the way we're going to have to go. It is going to make such a difference. And so it's not just a question of talking about how can we create this whole of society approach, and then really say we're going to be in the forefront as a country.
I couldn't agree more. And I think along those lines, I want you to look in your crystal ball and okay. What emerging trends in AI and scientific research are you most excited about?
Oh, I have to go back to agentic AI. So some of my research was on agents back in the early 2000s and neural nets. Foundational models will continue to evolve, and they'll get better, and they'll have fewer failures, and they'll just become more and more refined. So language models are really, really great, and we'll have language models assigned to different areas with various linguistic capabilities and vocabularies. But I get excited about agents, and I get excited not just about agents, but I get excited about what I call agentic swarms. Multiple agents, groups of agents working in sync. So it's one thing if we have all our agents doing the same task, that's easy to manage. But my area where I'm really excited because it's likely to happen, autonomous agents performing different kinds of tasks and thinking about how you govern the interactions between those agents, because there is a sequencing that if you sequence it incorrectly and you govern it incorrectly, then you could potentially have unforced errors, if you like, that compound in a negative direction. So the idea of not just single agents, we're seeing now the development of agents, but the idea of entire swarms is very, very exciting to me. How the power that we could generate in those and the kinds of applications and work that they could do together. So not just taking a little piece of science, if you like, if we're talking about science, but taking that whole workflow, taking it beyond what individual scientists do to get towards what sort of multidisciplinary scientific groups might do, and using multiple agents.
It's truly human-machine teaming.
It is.
Dr. Griffiths, thank you so much for the conversation.
Okay.
This has been a delight. Would you join me in thanking Dr. Griffiths for this conversation?
Thank you.